I managed to get a hold of a bottle of Chanel Number 5 Eau Premiere, which is one I've been wanting to try, but for some reason they don't seem to have it on the Chanel counters in any of the stores that sell the perfumes. So I didn't want to obviously invest in buying one online because they're very expensive, but it's relatively easy to get Chanel perfume secondhand. Obviously, you just need to check the batch numbers, make sure that they're real. But I really wanted to have a chat about these three from the Number 5 range because I know that these are like really divisive perfumes, or like Chanel Number 5 just generally is. It's been really interesting to read all the stuff that's been written about Margot Robbie taking over as the face of Chanel Number 5 and how irritated people seem to be like that about that. But I also often hear people saying that they just hate Chanel Number 5. It smells like old ladies, and they think it's really like not fashionable, and they shouldn't even bother to advertise it. So it's like people are really on two different sides about this one. Personally, I really like Chanel Number 5. I think probably that's partly because I like aldehydes and I like soapy perfumes. I don't like shampooy perfumes, but I like sort of musky soapy perfumes like that smell like bar soaps, and I really like the aldehydes that smell like bubbly old school soaps, like the more vintage aldehydes. I think with Number 5 Eau de Parfum, it definitely is really challenging when you first spray it, but I feel like the dry down of it is so classically beautiful, and it's not like vintage in a way that maybe some of the green Chanels are, or maybe even some of like the really old florals. I feel like Chanel Number 5 is timeless, and it's been selling for so long and it's been popular for so long that Chanel wouldn't be advertising it with someone like Margot Robbie if it wasn't still like a good seller for them. So I just thought it would be really fun to compare these, and I'm really fussy, so I can give you my opinion on them, and I hope this will help, because I was trying to look for videos like these and there's not tons of them. So let's start with Chanel Number 5, the original. I would love a bottle of this, but currently I just have this sample. So this has obviously been around since the, I think is it 1920 or 1915 or something. An incredibly old, classic, amazing perfume. This version of the Eau de Parfum, I guess, is kind of a modern one that has maybe less of the oak moss or like a synthetic oak moss, because I know they've changed some of the laws about what you can use there. I don't know whether it maybe used to have civet and all of those kind of things that now perfumers just can't use. So this Eau de Parfum is the modern version of the original Chanel Number 5. And what they note for the list, what they list for the notes, I should say, is aldehydes, ylang ylang, neroli, bergamot, and peach in the top. Middle notes of iris, jasmine, rose, lily of the valley in the mid. Base notes sandalwood, vanilla, oak moss, vetiver, and patchouli in the base. Now this is definitely a classic smelling chypre, but it is the queen of all the classic smelling chypres. It's very soapy and aldehydic when you first spray it, and my experience of Chanel Number 5 is that when I first spray it, what I get is a lot of the base notes. I know that doesn't really make sense, but I feel like I get a massive blast of the aldehydes, and I get like a sharpness from those because they're kind of fizzy. And then I get the oak moss and the patchouli and the vetiver. Like I get those almost immediately, and it smells quite green, it smells earthy, it's soapy, it smells really old-fashioned when you first spray it. And then when it dries down, you get the iris, you get more of those, generally just more of the kind of bouquet of flowers, a little bit of ylang, but those aldehydes turn into a beautiful soapy skin scent. And it doesn't list musk here, which amazes me because I'm quite sure there is musk in here. If you know Jovan musk, I feel like that smells quite similar to the kind of musky aroma you get, musky soapy aroma you get in the base when it dries down of Chanel Number 5 Eau de Parfum. So when I was a kid, I used to wear L'aimant by Coty as a body spray. I have that as a a perfume now that I am a 42-year-old woman, and I love that perfume. It's like a comfort blanket to me. And that is a kind of affordable version, also from very early in the 1900s. I think that was about 1922 or something. That perfume's been around for. And it is based on the original recipe for Chanel No. 5. So it's an aldehydic, floral, beautiful, soapy, clean, sparkling perfume. Warm and enveloping, the same way that this one is. And I think that's probably one of the reasons that I have a love for Chanel No. 5 Eau de Parfum, because it reminds me of childhood, not because someone else wore it, but randomly because when I was about 8, I was wearing something that smelled a bit like it. So I love this. I really would like a bottle. I'm hoping I'll be able to find one at some point for a good price on eBay. That's what I'm looking out for. But this one, I wanted to compare it to Eau Premiere because a lot of people really like the Eau Premiere version. Might leave it like that so we can actually see the cool bottle. I've heard quite a few people talk about how much they love this one, that it's like a more wearable version, it's a slightly more modern interpretation. And I already had No. 5 La Eau, which is the modern interpretation of No. 5. So I really wanted to see what Eau Premiere smelled like to compare it. So this is the old bottle for Eau Premiere. Like, these now come in this bottle. In fact, I think all of the No. 5s now come in this bottle. So the notes for Eau Premiere are aldehydes, ylang ylang and neroli in the top, middle notes of jasmine and a tincture of rose in the mid, base notes of vanilla, sandalwood and vetiver. So this is super fizzy. The aldehydes in this are very strong and they are champagne-like. They're not quite as kind of creamy, soapy as you get with the Eau de Parfum. I find them so fizzy and a little bit sharper so that they have that champagne feel. And there is a decent amount, I'd say, of a sugary vanilla in the base of Eau Premiere. And so it's sweet. It possibly is sweeter than the original Chanel No. 5, although not a huge amount, I wouldn't say. But it has a different feel to me because Eau Premiere feels much thinner. It's not got the same rich and creamy texture that I get from No. 5 Eau de Parfum. It feels lighter. It doesn't list any citruses, but it does feel like there might be something a bit citrusy in here. And it's got a sherbety quality about it, you know, the way that you'd have like lemon with sugar and you'd get this kind of sherbet. And I think that's the aldehydes. So I do think that this one's nice, but it's not at all my favourite. And I don't find this one easier to wear than Eau de Parfum. The reason being that I'm not sure I find it quite as well balanced as the original, because it doesn't have that richness, but it's quite sweet with the very sharp aldehydes. I actually find this one to be a little tiny bit sickly. I feel like it doesn't have the same weight in the base. It doesn't have the same kind of slightly thick, musky warmth to it that you get with Chanel No. 5. And although I can understand why some people find this one much easier to wear and they like it better, I don't think this one suits me personally very much. I find it a little bit too sweet for how aldehydic it is, and a little bit too... It's not that it's a cold smelling perfume, but it's definitely not as warm smelling to me as the Eau de Parfum. So I think probably what I'm going to end up doing is passing on this Eau Premiere in order to put that money towards getting the Eau de Parfum. Because what I also think is that Eau Premiere is sitting right in between the original and the La Eau. And obviously I have La Eau, so we can talk about this one next. Le Eau is definitely the most modern version I've smelt of Chanel Number 5. You can get a sense for the original, so you can get a sense for the general profile of the original, but it doesn't smell like a Chypre the way that the original does. So Le Eau is much more citrusy and it is a much colder perfume. It's cool. And it's absolutely, I think, at its best in hot weather. I think in summer is the best time to wear Le Eau. So the notes in Le Eau are aldehydes, lemon, neroli, mandarin orange, bergamot, orange and lime in the top. So like I said, very citrusy. It's still got loads of aldehydes, and it is the same kind of aldehydes from Eau Premiere. It's got that kind of slightly champagne-y feel. But then it's got those crisp and sour and slightly acidic citruses. Then in the mid, you've got ylang, jasmine and May Rose. And I feel like in Le Eau, ylang ylang is the strongest floral to me. Certainly on my skin, that's what comes out. And then in the base, you've got white musk, which is obviously a much colder musk than the kind that I'm pretty sure is in the Eau de Parfum. Then you've got orris root, so you've got that irisy element from the mid notes of the original, but it's in the base and it's like the root, so I guess maybe that might be a bit more buttery, I don't know. And then you've got cedar and vanilla. You do get a hint of the vanilla coming through as this dries down, but Le Eau is a skin scent in a way that these other two aren't so much. So the Eau de Parfum, definitely not a skin scent. That leaves a trail. People can smell you. The Eau Premiere, I think, is lighter, but people are still going to really notice it if you've properly sprayed it. Le Eau, you can spray quite a lot, and it's still subtle. It doesn't have that same, oh, damn, someone's wearing Chanel Number 5. You know, it doesn't have that kind of feel. It smells like a clean aesthetic perfume. It's got that modern feel of being slightly crisp, slightly soapy, but very fresh and bright, but then is a musky skin scent. So I really enjoy Le Eau. I think it's a beautiful perfume. I think it's one that is definitely the most approachable if you're not used to Chanel Number 5. But if you don't like aldehydes, you don't like fizzy, soapy perfumes, you are not going to like Le Eau, the chances are. But if you have a respect for the original, but it's too much for you, this is the one to go for. Le Eau is like a really approachable, easy to wear version of Chanel Number 5. And like I said, Eau Premiere for me just kind of is sitting in between these two. So it's the one that I don't really feel I need, because I'd rather have the original and have that warm, enveloping, and what I genuinely feel to be quite a sexy scent. I'd rather have that one and then the kind of the summer appropriate, really easy modern take on it. And I don't necessarily need something that's slap bang in between those two. Not that I still like Eau Premiere. I think it's a really beautiful perfume. It's just that I don't find it as beautiful as either of the other two. So, Chanel Number 5, I think it's still an absolute classic. It's a classic for a reason. There's a reason that the beautiful Marilyn Monroe used to wear this to bed, and this was her favourite perfume, because it is really inviting. If you nuzzle into someone and they smell like this, it's just, I think it's quite a sexy scent once it dries down, once it's really sunk into your skin. And, you know, you have to deal with the opening, fair enough, but after that, it's just kind of magic. And I have to say, I do sometimes smell women wearing Chanel Number 5. I live in London, and especially when I see kind of older ladies, you know, with shoulder pads and stuff, and they're still rocking the Chanel Number 5. But I love the scent trail. I think they smell incredible. I just, you know, I always think that it smells classy. I don't think I'll ever get away from thinking that Chanel, even though I'm not someone who buys expensive perfumes most of the time, and I don't have a collection of Chanel perfumes, whenever I smell them, I always know a Chanel. Like, Chanel has a specific house DNA, and it is not chemically, and it's not full of modern aroma chemicals, and they are just generally always just classy smelling. They just smell chic and classy. They smell expensive, even though nowadays they are not as expensive as a lot of other houses that are like so popular. You know, this is nothing compared to a bottle of Baccarat Rouge. So yeah, I think I'm going to get myself the eau de parfum in, and hopefully in the same size bottle as this little guy, because then I can put them next to each other and they can look beautiful. But yeah, so that's my little video. I hope this was helpful to anyone who's been looking at these. And if you're trying to work out which one you want, let me know down below if you have a favourite and what you think of these. And if you totally disagree with me, or if they totally smell different to you, do let me know. And if you've never smelt Chanel No. 5, then hopefully I've piqued your interest. But as with all of these kind of older perfumes, what I always want to say is there is a difference between older perfumes, vintage perfumes, and the new perfumes. My feeling about the new perfumes is that very often when I spray them, they smell amazing at first, and then they get less and less good as they dry down. They smell chemically, they smell like cheap woods. They don't get better. They start off good and then get worse. The vintage perfumes, they start off challenging, but they dry down into magic. And I really do believe that a lot of older perfumes from, like, you know, before the 2000s and right back, you have to give them time to dry down and meld with your skin. And that is when you really get to experience what that true fragrance is. So go to the Chanel counter, spray on No. 5 eau de parfum, or spray on La Eau, walk away, walk around, and come back to it and smell what your skin smells like. Because I think that's when you really, really can understand why Marilyn Monroe said this is the only thing that she wore to bed. All right. Bye, guys.